back to our channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name's Lisa, it's great to have you. So today's video is going to be a little bit different to my usual day in the life, routines, hauls, cleaning videos. This is going to be an updated pet care and pet update video because sadly in recent weeks and months I've actually lost a few of my pets that I had. I've lost a couple of jumping spiders, I've lost my stick insects, I've lost a couple of mantises as well. So I literally have a jumping spider, 2 mantises left, and then I've got a bearded dragon, a corn snake and a leopard gecko, which I think I've previously mentioned in other videos, like past videos. If you've seen those, you might have kind of seen them featured in videos, or you've seen their enclosures and things and thought, oh, what are those in there? So I'm here to do a kind of a slightly later than I planned updated sort of pet update, pet care video, and just to give you an oversight of just the general maintenance and care that I give these animals, and just to tell you a little bit about them really. I've also managed to steal some help from a couple of YouTube videos as well that I found, just giving you basic overviews of each animal, particularly for the leopard gecko, the corn snake and the bearded dragon. So I will include the links to those videos or those YouTube people down in the description box below, as well as a couple of other useful resources like websites and social media pages and things like that that you might want to check out, because the research for these animals, if you're thinking about getting one of these animals yourself, it's very specialist needs. They require very specialist things like lighting, heat, certain enclosures, decor within the enclosure, and food and things like that. So I want to stress to you here and now, I want to be seen to be stressing to you here and now, just please do all the research that you can. And you know, if you think that something sounds a little bit off or feels a little bit off, when you hear someone say something like, oh, this animal doesn't need that, or this animal, just do your research, get a second opinion, a third opinion, ask around with different communities, go on Facebook pages or Instagram pages. TikTok does some great educational videos for these particular animals, particularly the reptiles that I'm going to show you. And like I say, I will link a few of those resources and pages and things down below if I can, just to give you an idea of the kind of places that really take exceptional care of these pets, and they know their stuff. And even they will say that they're learning and growing with things all the time with regards to information that they gather and research that they do. It's an ever-changing thing, and it's certainly changed in the last like 10-20 years since people started keeping these kind of animals as pets. They are exotic pets, so they do need specialist requirements, and they're not kind of like your typical cat or dog or even a rabbit or a guinea pig. They are very, very particular in their needs. So yeah, just do your research. I do stress that through the video as well. Just obviously do your research, know what you're getting into, know that these kinds of animals can live 15, 20, 30 years plus. In some cases, the corn snake, I think the oldest corn snake is like 32 years old, just over. Typically like 15, 20 years is about the average for these particular animals. Mantises and jumping spiders, they're a lot shorter. They're like a year, 2 years maybe. But yeah, obviously the other animals that I'm going to show you, they are around for the long haul, so you have to be prepared to have lots of bugs in your house that you might be squeamish or too squeamish to deal with usually. Things like mealworms, cockroaches, flies, dubia roaches, locusts, crickets, things like that. Just be aware that you're going to need to take care of these guys as well in order to make sure they're healthy, so that you're feeding your pet healthy food. So anyway, without further ado, I will get into the video. I'll let you look through it, and you can learn a little bit more about them. And yeah, obviously if you have any questions, then please by all means drop me comments down below, and yeah, I'll try and answer them as best as I can. Like I say, I don't profess to be an expert at this. I'm still very much a newbie. It's only been like literally in the last several months, or you know, barely a year really, or in the case of the jumping spiders and the mantises, it's been a little over a year, but I'm still very, very new. So please, you know, like I say, that's why I stress do your research yourself, and just make sure that you know what you're getting into, because yeah, it's a lot of work. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video, and I'll take you through all of the pets in turn, starting with Bug Corner, and I will catch up with you at the end. So here we go. So we're going to start over in what I like to call bug corner, where we have the spider and the two mantises, and you're just giving you an overview here of the enclosures. You'll see the mesh enclosure as well to the side there on the top shelf, which have the flies in that I give the spider and the mantises for food. There's just some blue bottle flies in there. And Luna is on the top shelf and the mantises are both on the bottom. And this is in Luna's enclosure. As you can see in just a moment, she is down, sat on her hydrometer that's in there, just so that I can keep an eye on the temperatures. And yeah, I think she's kind of enjoying the heat lamp there. I've got halogen heat lamps just to keep them nice and warm, because they like it nice and warm. And that's a close-up of Luna there. So jumping spiders are diurnal, and they sleep at night and they come out during the day. They're awake most of the day, although they will doze during the day as well. And she looks like she's kind of awake, but she's a little bit drowsy. But usually you can tell when they're kind of asleep. They tuck their front feet sort of like pointing inwards. Which is quite sweet, really. So jumping spiders are arboreal, so they like to climb. Obviously, they will climb pretty much anything and everything, and they make little hammocks to sleep in and to molt their skin in, which they do sort of like every few weeks or so. They'll have like a molt up until about sort of like between 8 and 9 molts usually, before they reach maturity. This is a close-up of Luna enjoying a locust that she'd been sucking on at this point, I think for about 4 hours, and she was getting every last bit of it out. She's literally here started on the legs as well. She kind of like turns it every now and again once she's finished with a bit, and she'll turn it to get another little bit. And she was fit to bursting by the time she'd finished this. This is a little pot of fly casters, just to sort of show you how they're delivered. Sometimes I have them delivered already hatched, but this particular instance they'd actually run out, and I had to get them unhatched. And this is obviously what they end up being, so I sort of like take a few out at a time and then just leave the rest in the fridge, and it's sort of they last longer before they hatch at room temperature. And I've just popped a jelly pot in along with some bug gel, just some little bug gel pellets in the bottom for hydration for them for when they do hatch. And this is Luna as well, another time enjoying one of those flies. You can't really see it, it's a little bit on the grainy side because she's sat on the mesh there at the side of her enclosure, but she's enjoying a juicy fly there. And jumping spiders eat flies, they can eat crickets, mealworms, locusts. Luna will pretty much eat anything. She's actually not fussy, whereas my other two jumping spiders that I had, Eric and Charlotte, they were a little bit fussier, and Charlotte I think had a mealworm once or twice. Eric did the same, but they preferred their flies, definitely. And unfortunately they recently passed. The average lifespan for a jumping spider is about a year and a half. Some can live longer. And Luna is about 8 months old at the moment, so yeah, she's not quite a year. They drink water droplets when you miss their enclosure, which I do twice a day. It depends obviously on the temperatures and things. Luna is very, very easygoing. She usually likes to come out straight away when I open her enclosure and I put my hand in. She'll wander around, she'll practice her jumps. She's very, very curious. Yeah, she's just very, very easygoing. And their temperatures are between 25 and 32, and their humidity is between 60 and 80. So yeah, there's an average, it's sort of like about 30 degrees I keep them at, and then humidity is sort of like 65, 70. Sometimes it gets up to 80, like a little spike, but that's fine. So moving on, now I've finished talking about Luna. This is Buddy, my budwing mantis. Buddy is a female mantis, and she's got wings, so she has reached maturity. They get their wings when they're mature and they have their final molt. And again, mantises, they'll molt every sort of like 2 or 3 weeks until they reach maturity. Here's Buddy just enjoying a little bit of honey on a cotton bud, on a Q-tip here. I'd put some squeezy honey on here, and she absolutely loves it. Lucifer, my other mantis, you'll see in a few minutes, he loves it as well, and I give this as a treat sort of like every couple of weeks or so. And it was about time. I'd kind of haven't given them honey for a little while, so I thought doing this video as well, I would get them out and show you show you them eating honey. So mantises are kind of more nocturnal. Again, they'll sort of like rest and hang around during the day and in the evening, and often like out in the wild where there's like flies and different bugs that come out in the evening, they'll go out hunting and tracking their prey down and eating it. And they eat flies, crickets. Some people don't always give their mantises crickets because sometimes they carry like pests and things, and then they can develop like worms, like tapeworms and things. I don't think I've ever given any of my mantises, actually, thinking about it, crickets. I think Buddy's had a mealworm once, I think when I was still waiting for flies to hatch and they were taking a while. So just because she hadn't eaten for about sort of a week and a half at that point, I just wanted to give her something, and I had some mealworms. So yeah, she's got just a ridiculous appetite. She'll just eat and eat and eat if she's given the option. And usually I give the mantises a fly probably every other day. It's usually a blue bottle fly or a green bottle if that's all I've got. In which case, because they're slightly smaller, I'll give them a couple of flies every other day. But if it's a blue bottle, because they're slightly bigger, I'll give both Buddy and Lucifer a fly every other day, and that does them.
Standing underneath the lights.
And here you can see I've put a fly in, and Buddy's like trying to chase it down, trying to catch it. She was trying hard to. It took her a few attempts, and eventually she did catch it. Lucifer is a little bit pickier, actually, with his food. He'll prefer flies, definitely. I have offered a mealworm, I think once or twice, and he decided, no, I don't like the look of that, just give me a fly, please. So yeah, he's a bit pickier, but Buddy will eat basically anything because she has a huge appetite, and apparently budwing mantises are known for it. They literally will eat and eat and eat until they pop. So yeah, she's desperately trying to get that fly, and she did eventually. The average mantis is sort of kept, again, very similar temperatures to jumping spiders, between 25 and 30 degrees, and their humidity's about 50-60%, although Lucifer, the ghost mantis, who I'm showing you right now, is he can be kept at higher humidity, sort of up to 90%, and an average mantis lifespan is between 6 and 9 months. It's longer for females by about 2 or 3 months. The males tend to live sort of like 6 months maybe, and the females will live like maybe 9-10 months. Lucifer's a little bit behind Buddy in terms of maturity. He is mature. He's a mature male, so he's got his wings and everything. And he's probably about 2 months behind Buddy. So it might be that Buddy goes first, or it could be actually that Lucifer goes first, because obviously Lucifer is a male and they have a shorter lifespan. He might end up going. Sadly, they don't have a long lifespan at all, unfortunately. So budwing mantises, like I say, are very feisty. They actively chase their prey down. They're quite fierce when it comes to each other and obviously going after their prey, whereas ghost mantises, like Lucifer is here, they tend to be a lot calmer. They're a lot more chilled. They'll just hang around. I mean, Lucifer I have actually seen kind of go after flies before now, sort of actually move towards them, but most of the time they tend to just hang around and let the fly come to them and then grab it quick. And you can see here Lucifer's wondering why I'm actually filming him. Here he stopped eating and he was like, why are you filming me? You can still see the fly kicking. They literally like catch their prey and they'll eat it still alive, which is a bit brutal, but hey, that's nature for you. Budwing mantises, with Buddy, I have actually seen her a few times display her wings and her front legs. You would have seen they have stripes on them, and they've got quite beautiful colours on their wings, but the females are more for displaying. They won't tend to use their wings to fly away, whereas males do. They will actually use their wings to fly and go from place to place in search of prey or in search of mates. Lucifer, I've never seen him kind of open out his wings. I don't think they're active wings at all. they just literally pretend to be dead leaves. Basically, that's why they look the way they look. They just hang out, let the prey come to them, and then they grab it. So the prey thinks, or the fly thinks, that it's a dead leaf, and is none the wiser. So yeah, it's very, very clever, really a clever technique. So again, with Lucifer and Buddy, I just mist their enclosures twice a day, morning and evening. This is me misting all the enclosures first thing in the morning. It just depends on the temperatures, how warm it gets in there, and how dry the air is in the house as well. Sometimes it can be a lot more humid than others, and sometimes it's quite a bit drier. At the minute, even with the winter, like the cold weather, I'm actually having to mist them twice a day. So yeah, it all depends really, but you can see Buddy trying to catch the water droplets as I'm misting her enclosure. I wasn't actually deliberately getting her, it was round the sides, but yeah, because the mist was kind of hitting her, she was trying to grab it. She's feisty. So yeah, that is an overview of the enclosures there, and just some basic information about the spiders and the mantises. And also I wanted to add this in because Buddy is a female. They lay these little egg sacs called, I believe they're called ootheca or something. I've probably just butchered that, and someone's probably going to be screaming at me in the comments like, oh no. But yeah, this is a little egg sac. Now, because Buddy hasn't been with a male, these won't be fertile, but these are the egg sacs that they lay. It's like a little cocoon. It kind of feels like styrofoam, and obviously the babies will hatch out after a couple of months or so. And yeah, this obviously wasn't fertile, so yeah, there won't be anything in there, so I disposed of it. So moving on to Bilbo, the bearded dragon. And Bilbo is about a year old. We got him when he was about 5 months old. And bearded dragons are diurnal, so it means that they are awake during the day, a bit like jumping spiders, and they sleep at night. And they are native to Australia, desert and scrublands, and some species live in subtropical areas as well. But there's about, I think, 8 recognised species of bearded dragons, and this is the most common one. This is the Pagona viticeps, which most people keep as pets, although some people do actually own different species of bearded dragons. They're cold-blooded, and they bask in sun to get their temperatures up and to digest their food, and they burrow and hide when they get too hot or night time, or when they're laying eggs for the females. You can see Bilbo here sat on the cushion looking out the window. He spotted something of interest, so he's got his eye on that. And I found a great video on YouTube with the lady explaining a bit more about them, so I'll pass you on to her.
Bearded dragons are members of the Pagona genus and are endemic to Australia. Though due to their ease of care, and I guess their winning personalities, they can now be found all over the world in pet stores and in the homes of exotic animal owners. Bearded dragons are semi-arboreal and spend a good portion of their days in the trees, basking in the sunlight. Rocks also make for good basking spots, and for the best spots, beardies will often fight one another. Despite their reputation for being rather chill, they can be quite aggressive towards one another. Males will attack any bearded dragon that does not display submissive behavior. Fighting and intimidation are a big part of their lives, and they create hierarchies that they have to protect or challenge daily to survive and mate. They get their name from their throats, which are covered in dull spikes. In order to show dominance over other dragons, they will inflate their throats, open their mouths, and even change color. The most aggressive color display? Jet black.
Hello, mate.
Their coloration isn't only used in confrontation, and they will change to a darker color in order to absorb heat more quickly. In fact, when dark, they can get to their active body temperature of 40 degrees Celsius about 22 minutes faster. This saves a lot of time and frees them up to forage and look for mates. Their beards are also used in mating. During the courtship process, males will bob their heads at varying speeds. If you couldn't tell, this is an act of dominance, and is used to warn off competing males. In addition to this, males will flash their throats and stomp in order to catch a female's attention. When she draws near, he'll bite her neck to get into position to mate. The sex of the babies depends on temperature, regardless of chromosomes. If the eggs are incubated in temperatures of over 34 degrees Celsius, they will be females, and if they're lower, they will be males. The fear is that global warming could lead to the majority of bearded dragons being born female, with not enough males to keep the population stable. Mating happens at the end of the cold season, after they brumate. Brumation is a hibernation-like state when reptiles slow down their metabolic rate and stop eating and drinking during cold weather. This allows them to survive harsh colds without expending much energy. On the flip side of things, when it gets too hot, they'll burrow underground and go dormant to keep cool. Their diet is made up primarily of insects, but as they get older, their diet becomes more diverse and they can eat greens.
I'm in the mood for food. I'm in the mood for food. Feed me, feed me, feed me till I'm fit to burst. Feed me, feed me, feed me till I'm fit to burst. Feed me, feed me, feed me till I'm fit to burst. Each and every special meal as wondrous as the first.
Bearded dragons are incredibly popular as pets. They're very exotic, but they're also very easy to take care of. They're affectionate, and they're really quite chill.
So here's a rundown of a typical bearded dragon needs, what they need in their enclosure. So he's in a 4x2 by 2 foot enclosure, which is a minimum, and he has a 10% UVB light, a 100-watt halogen basking bulb, a 50-watt ceramic heat bulb, that's for extra heating if the temperatures drop too low, and for ambient temperature and for nighttime. He has plenty of climbing opportunities, so logs and things like that in there. He has a piece of slate for basking. He has a few hides throughout his enclosure, warm end and cool end for sleeping in shade. He's got a water bowl, a food bowl for daily salads, and 50-50 desert sand and earth mix arid soil substrate mix. And this is an overview of what all of that looks like within his enclosure. As you can see, the logs and branches, his slate basking spot that he's sat on right now, his food bowl for his salads daily on the top shelf there. You've obviously got the ceramic heat emitter for nighttime and when it gets really cold and to help with ambient temperature. There's artificial plants, there's cork bark and various hides in different places. There's a water bowl there. So he's got plenty of coverage. He's got places to kind of sleep in and hide under and just sit under if it gets a little bit warm. He can go to a cool end of the enclosure, and that's why it's very important to create a gradient, and you need a big enough enclosure to have that gradient between warm and cool, so that they've kind of got somewhere hot to bask, they've got somewhere cool if they get too hot, and then they've got somewhere kind of like in the middle. So it's very, very important to kind of give them that extra room as well in their enclosure, because obviously they need the enrichment and they're kind of in it maybe a lot of the time. So it's only fair that you kind of give them enough space to move around and to be able to kind of choose what sort of temperature they want to sit at. So the humidity that I keep him at is kind of somewhere between 30 and 60%. Sometimes it spikes to sort of 65, 70 just as a short term. If I've changed the soil, for example, on a sort of like a main change out every 2 or 3 months, I'll change everything in there. But typically it stays at about sort of 50, 60%, and that's about right, especially when it comes to them shedding, because even though they are dry shedders, they do need the humidity to kind of help them peel off their skin and obviously keep them hydrated so they don't get too thirsty or dehydrated. A lot of people I know say that they don't necessarily put water in their bearded dragon's enclosure, and when they bathe them, which again is another sort of like our kind of subject, because not everybody bathes their bearded dragons. Some people do when it comes to them shedding, because it helps with their itching, that helps relieve their itching. They are actually dry shedders, so they don't necessarily need the baths unless you are advised to by your vet for medical reasons or something like that, if they've got a skin condition and the vet tells you to bathe them for whatever reason. But typically I only usually bathe Bilbo if he's run or swished his tail through poop, which has only happened sort of 2 or 3 times, I think, where I've just kind of freshened him up, just run some water, some about 95, 100 degrees water in the bath, and very, very shallow, and just sort of let him run around up and down the bath, just swished him around for about 5 minutes. Then I've taken him out, towel dried him and put him back under his basking spot. So typically they don't really need a bath. They are dry shedders, although it I guess does sort of like help relieve the itching if they are super itchy as their skin's starting to peel off. But yeah, it's not really necessary to be honest. And I know some people say that the only way their bearded dragon will drink is if they drip it onto the end of their nose, or if they actually put them in the bath. So it's a way of kind of getting them to drink water. They prefer moving water, some bearded dragons. Bilbo, yes, I have dripped it onto the end of his nose before and he's kind of licked it, or I've sort of got a little dropper or a syringe or something in his mouth and encouraged him to drink, and he will drink it. But I have also seen him drink from his water bowl as well, sort of like lick some of the drops off the edge and things. So I know that he does drink at some point, obviously when he needs it, and they do get a lot of moisture from their salads, their greens, and from the bugs that they eat as well, especially if obviously you're ensuring that your bugs are gut loaded and they have moisture as well in them. So this is the feeding schedule, his feeding and diet. So he has a small salad daily, which is dusted with either calcium powder and then Nutribal multivitamin powder, dusted on his salad 2 days a week. His bugs are also given once a day, or actually that's reduced to every other day now. He's a little bit older, and they are also dusted with calcium or multivitamin powder. And you're supposed to feed them at least 2 hours after their lights go on, their light and heat, and at least 2 hours before their lights and heat go off as well. So I tend to typically, like when I am feeding him, obviously he'll have a salad first thing in the morning, and he'll just eat that, pick at that as and when he wants to throughout the day. But then I'll give him his bugs sort of like around lunchtime-ish, actually, or mid-morning lunchtime, just so that he's got the rest of the day to kind of sit and kind of digest it under his heat lamp. And then obviously maybe a couple of hours later I'll sort of like get him out for an hour or two, and then he'll go back in his enclosure for sort of like the late afternoon, early evening, until his lights go off at 7. His lights and his heat come on at 7 in the morning and go off at 7 in the evening, so he gets a good 12 hours of sleep without his lights and heat. And obviously it takes a little while to cool down as well in there. And of course during the day he'll get a good 12 hours with his lights and heat on. So here is just an example of a salad that I'd kind of mixed up. I just popped some in a tub so I could just take it out every day when I need it. And there's a little bit of broccoli there, there's a little bit of kale, there's some spring greens that I'll give him. There's rocket salad, rocket leaves, or arugula, I think some people call it. And I just obviously give him a small salad in this bowl and dust it with calcium and Nutribal multivitamin. So typically Monday to Friday I'll do calcium, and Saturday and Sunday I'll do the multivitamin. It's just an easy way to remember doing it that way, and it works out perfectly. And then every other day, or if I noticed he hasn't eaten greens for sort of a couple of days, I'll sprinkle his salad with some bee pollen. This is kind of basically like giving your bearded dragon candy. It's like giving them dessert as well as with their healthy salad. And it does encourage a lot of bearded dragons to eat their greens. And yeah, I find that he does actually a little bit more on the days that I do dust his veg with bee pollen, and on the days that he doesn't have any, he will barely touch his greens. But yeah, sometimes bearded dragons can be picky, and then other times they will just completely devour their greens. He's not at that stage yet. Maybe that will change as he gets older and he will be a veg or a green lover, but at the minute he'll kind of just have a few leaves and then just won't touch his salad for the rest of the day. And then I obviously have to change it the next morning because it goes a bit crispy and stuff in there, being in there all day under the heat and everything. So this is me just giving his enclosure a spot clean, which I do every day. Obviously I change his water every morning when I put his salad in, and just obviously check for poo throughout the day. If I see any in there, obviously I will clean it out. And I was just giving his basking spot here just a bit of a wipe over because it hadn't been done for a couple of days. It was looking a bit dusty. And obviously here you can see I'm just changing his water dish. Just gave it a wipe out and putting some fresh in.
I'll get over you, only wish that I knew how to go on. Baby, you and me, we're so messed up together. Even if we tried, we'd be stuck here forever. I don't understand right now how to make it through, but
And here in this section, I'm just showing you as well, talking about shedding and things like that, how they lose their skin every sort of anything from a few weeks when they're young to 2 or 3 months when they get a bit older. You can see there's bits of skin everywhere. At this point he was actually shedding, and this was the first time in about 3 months actually, so it just shows that it kind of does space out as they get a little bit older, and they shed in bits. They'll just, might be 1 week, or for a couple of days they'll shed on the head, and then might be a week or so in between, or a few days in between, and then all of a sudden they'll start the rest of their body. He decided that he was going to shed everywhere all at once. So this is kind of a few days in where he'd started to shed on his body. He'd shed the skin around his head and his face, so his whole body was shedding. His belly, his tail area was shedding as well. You can see it sticking up everywhere, and it was all over his enclosure. So I had to go in after we'd finished with his shed. I just went in and just removed all of the dead skin and everything like that, just sieved it all out of his substrate. But he's up there on his shelf looking almost a little bit sorry for himself. He's been rubbing against a lot of stuff in his enclosure, which is another reason why it's important to kind of give them different textures and things to rub against for when they are shedding, because it helps them get rid of the itchies and obviously the peeling skin. And this is him out and about. He's kind of on my shoulder. He was a bit fidgety this particular evening that I filmed this, so he wouldn't stay put for very long. So forgive the shaky camera work. He was all over the place. He was just decided he wanted to come out and explore. He had been out earlier on in the day, but obviously there was sort of like a few hours or so in between, so he decided he wanted to glass surf and asked to come out. So I just let him out for about half an hour or so, just to give him a little bit of a run around before his lights were due to go out. This is him like on the back of our bed looking out the window in the bedroom. He's being very nosy, just wants to look out even though the light is dimming, and you can see that he's still got some loose skin on his tail. Half of his tail's gone, the skin, but he's just got the rest of it to go. This is him in the living room. Typically he'll, like I say, he loves sort of like running around the living room, and sometimes he'll be out and he'll sit on this cat tower here, which I got for him, and I'll do a hot water bottle for him. Oh, there he goes. He's decided to do a runner out across the kitchen floor. Niels had to go and grab him because he's got out into the hallway. But yeah, he'll often sit on his hot water bottle that I'll do for him, so it helps keep him warm, and he won't move. And then other times he'll actually get down after a little while of looking out the window, and he'll wander around the living room and just explore in the kitchen and things and try and do a runner. Usually we have that kitchen door closed, but this particular day, because he wasn't out for very long in the evening before he was put back, he decided he was going to do a runner through the open door. He's a very, very chilled out beardie. I've never actually had any aggression from him. I think the most has been like he's puffed up his beard a couple of times, but that's only because I've approached him from above, and they don't like that. It startles them, because I suppose it's like birds or things swooping down on them from above, so they get a little bit defensive sometimes. But apart from that, he's never like gone to bite me. He's never been aggressive towards me or anything. He is super chilled out, just very relaxed, and yeah, he's definitely grown in confidence with regards to exploring when he's out and about, wandering around. He used to be quite nervous, and he would spend a lot of the time going sort of between looking out the window, and if he saw a bird sort of fly overhead outside, he would dive underneath the sofa and he'd hide there for about half an hour before he'd actually venture out. You'd have to coax him out with like a superworm or something, or a bug. But yeah, he's definitely a lot better now. He's very confident, and he's just a very chilled out, sweet, friendly dragon.
It's like I waited all my life, so happy that I found you on paper thin. I haven't always been this shy, but haven't felt this in a while now. So sad when we are apart. If you leave, you break my heart. I need you to need me too. Stay with me when it's getting dark. Hold me tight, close in your arms. I want you to want me too. Why is it so hard to just be honest? Why is it so hard to speak the truth? Why is it so hard to just be honest when I want this? Maybe you want it too, so I just need to tell you. I just need to tell you. See the sun in the shadow all my life, but I finally see the light. I give myself to you. I want to get this right. Haven't felt this.
So moving on to Harley, our leopard gecko, and this clip was the day we actually brought Harley home. So Harley was about 2 months old when we first got him, and he's about 7 months old now. And when we got him from the pet shop, the guy there said that based on the temperatures that the eggs were incubated at, the chances are she would be a girl. But as it turned out, she was actually a he, because I've recently kind of realised that there's a couple of little bulges near the base of his tail, and he's also got the classic little dotted lines, like in a V shape, on his underbelly, also near like the little bulges, which suggests that it's actually a male. So I'm going to try to say he and him in this video, but forgive me if there's a slip of the tongue and you might hear she, because I'm still kind of getting used to saying he rather than she. For the last sort of like few months or since we've had him, I've been referring to it as she and a her. So yeah, pronouns are he, him. I've got to try and remember. So yeah, this was actually sort of when he was a little bit younger, and he was in that enclosure that you saw. It was the first enclosure that we put him in, and this was when he had his rock effect styrofoam wall. So you can see he's actually climbing. He used to love climbing up this wall, and I don't have this enclosure anymore. I've actually got a wooden vivarium, which is also front opening like this one was. This was obviously a clip from when he was a bit smaller, and I was changing him over into his new enclosure that he's got now. So I'm just using this like mesh cube just to pop him in so I can clear everything out. And you can see he's trying to escape. He wasn't sure why he was in here. I've popped his hide in so that he would have somewhere to go and sit in while I was cleaning everything out. So I transferred it over, and you'll see the new enclosure in just a moment, of the enclosure that he's in now. And their lifespan in the wild is about 8 to 10 years, and they can live up to 20 years plus in captivity. He'll be about fully grown by about a year old, a year 18 months. So hopefully he's got lots of life in him yet.
Never dreamed about nothing else other than you. I always thought I'd be waiting in vain, but suddenly there you were.
I found a couple of good videos on YouTube explaining a bit more about leopard geckos, so I'll pass you over to those just to give you a bit more of a rundown and an idea about them.
Originating from the rocky grasslands of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran and northwest India, Eublepharus macularis, more commonly known as the leopard gecko, is a small ground-dwelling gecko known for its distinctive fat tail and movable eyelids. It is not completely clear who first discovered leopard geckos, but it is thought to have happened in the 1800s. Since then, leopard geckos have been selectively bred in the pet trade for their colours and patterns. This selective breeding has led to a variety of leopard gecko morphs becoming readily available to the public. However, some, like the Enigma morph, has proven to be somewhat problematic in some individuals who inherit Enigma syndrome. Due to the political climate in the regions where leopard geckos are from, as well as their shy nature and crepuscular habits, almost nothing is known about their natural behaviour. However, from watching our pet geckos and a large amount of trial and error, herpetology enthusiasts have come pretty close to figuring out the best husbandry practices for our scaly friends. Though the reptile hobby is always evolving and we should be prepared to evolve with it. Despite varying colours and patterns, every leopard gecko requires the same basic care. At least 2 to 3 hides in a leopard gecko's tank, as they love to hide. They could and often do spend all day in a cosy, warm, dark hide. They need 1 hide on their hotspot, 1 on the cold end of the tank, and 1 in the middle that has moss, substrate or a damp paper towel in that will act as a humid hide. Substrate is a highly debated topic with leopard geckos. A common misconception is they must be housed on sand, as some documents suggest they live in a desert environment and most people assume it's sandy. However, their natural environment isn't sandy at all. In fact, they live in rocky grasslands. Substrates such as calci sand, once ingested, can cause health problems such as blockages in the digestive system, known as impaction. The most highly recommended substrates for geckos over 6 months old are EcoEarth, bioactive substrates such as Arcadia's Earth Mix Arid, tiles or paper towel. A UV light can also be added to a leopard gecko setup, as UVA and UVB can both be beneficial to a gecko's health and lessen the risk of metabolic bone disease, as long as the UV light is used alongside the correct supplements. In order to administer the supplements, they should be dusted on the gecko's food. Speaking of food, let's talk about diet. Leopard geckos are primarily insectivores, which means they eat insects. The best insects for your leopard gecko staple diet are dubia roaches, crickets, locusts, mealworms or calciworms. Insects such as superworms and waxworms can be fed occasionally, but they're often considered to be more like treats for the leopard gecko. It is important to remember that happy, well-fed insects will be much more nutritious than malnourished, sickly ones. You should always gut load your feeders with a range of vegetable scraps. As previously mentioned, they should also be dusted with the appropriate calcium and vitamin mix before being fed to your gecko. Leopard geckos make great pets, and when given the correct care, they can live for 20 years or more. Unfortunately, a lot of websites and care sheets have outdated information, often encouraging the use of calci sand or downplaying the importance of using supplements. 2 common practices that carry a lot of risk. So here's to improving the standard of care for our scaly friends.
So here I'm just giving you an overview of his enclosure. So he's in a 3 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosure. He's got a 7% shade dweller UVB light kit, 100 watt halogen bulb on a dimmer, 50 watt ceramic heat bulb in case of nighttime temperatures and other low temperatures. There's lots of hides and places to sleep, shelter and explore. A calcium dish so that they can lick the calcium if they feel that they need a top up, because instinctively they seem to know if they're low on calcium and they need that extra. But I do dust his bugs and food with calcium and multivitamin powder every day or every feeding anyway. He's got logs and branches to climb on and explore, and the substrate is 50-50 desert sand Earth Mix Arid soil. So I'm just giving you an overview of the new enclosure that he's in now. You can see lots of like hides and things to climb on for enrichment and climbing opportunities. They are mostly ground dwelling, but they will climb if they really feel they want to. They will climb like rock walls, on branches, things like that. If there is a climbing opportunity, they will take it. I found that with Harley, and yeah, I've seen that with other videos as well. Other people have sort of said on social media and things like that that they don't provide any climbing opportunities for their leopard gecko because they're ground dwelling, and a lot of people have like gone in the comments sort of like saying, well, my leopard gecko or leopard geckos do climb, they climb all the time because I've put things in there that they climb on, and they will climb on the branches, they'll climb up the styrofoam wall at the back of their enclosure, so they will do it, and I have seen Harley doing it many times. The earlier clip that you saw when she was smaller in her other enclosure, you saw she was climbing up the wall. So yeah, they will climb. He's got a water dish in there and a couple of feeding bowls for different bugs that I put in there for him.
Let you go. So don't let go. Get close to me. Oh, don't let go. Get close to me. My body's waiting for you. I know your body's been waiting too. I wanna be so much better whenever you're around. I wanna say something clever to get in your mind. 'Cause right now we're not together, and I lose my way then. Oh, I feel so much better.
And here I'm just showing you the timer and dimmer setup on the top of the enclosure, a little bit with like Bilbo's section. I kind of gave you, I think, a brief overview of that as well, just to show that we have them on dimmers and timers so we can control the temperature, and the lights go on and off, like the same with the heating, different times during the day and night. We also have this temperature gun as well to keep an eye on hot spots and basking spots for Harley and Bilbo's enclosures. They eat similar things to bearded dragons in the sense that they'll have crickets, locusts, dubia roaches, mealworms, waxworms, things like that. But they are insectivores, so no salad, just bugs. In terms of feeding Harley, I have reduced the amount, whereas I used to give him food every single day while he was young, but obviously as he's got a little bit older, he's like sort of 7 months now, it's absolutely fine to give them food every other day. So that's what I tend to do. I give him sort of about 8 to 10 bugs every other day, and I find that's actually quite suitable for the age and the size that he is right now. I don't obviously want him getting overweight or absolutely huge, because they do have fat stores in their tail, which is why their tails thicken out as they grow and they're fed right, and they do keep some of the fat stores in their tail, so they could actually go a few days or a week or whatever without food. That's the general idea of having the fat stores in their tail. They can actually make do if they found themselves in the wild, scarce of food. Obviously I wouldn't promote that in captivity, because as the owner of a pet, you're supposed to feed them regularly and make sure they're well taken care of, and they're getting nutritious food and a good diet. But it's absolutely fine at the age that he is right now, sort of 7 months old, to actually feed him every other day. And I find that in the past, sort of before I started to reduce it, actually he wasn't eating the bugs every single day that I was trying to give him. So when I was feeding him every single day, there would be days that he would actually refuse the food. So that was kind of, I took the cue from him that it was kind of time to start reducing his amount of food down. So every other day I find that he actually eats a good amount when he does get given the bugs, and then obviously it's fine to have a day in between the feeding times that he's not obviously eating bugs at all. And even when he's actually a couple of months older than what he is now, or by the time he gets to a year old, I will probably end up only feeding him about 3 days a week, which some people would be like, what, you're only feeding your pet 3 days a week? It's different to a cat or a dog. You have to obviously be aware of that with reptiles and certain other animals like this, where their dietary needs are not quite the same. You have to be careful of them not getting overweight. You have to be careful of their digestive system. They have a different digestive system to dogs and cats and things like that. I mean, I'm no expert, I'm still a newbie to these kind of like reptiles and lizards and things, so obviously please, I would say, do a lot of research before you get these kind of pets and know what you're dealing with. You're going to have bugs around the house in different containers, and lots of them. Certainly while they're young, if you do actually get a baby pet of this kind, they do go through a lot of bugs. It will cost you a fair amount of money money while they're young, while they're eating so much, like sort of 3-5 times a day. Certainly as far as Bilbo goes, when we first got him, he was eating sort of like 3-4 times a day. So you have to kind of be aware that yes, it will cost you the money to get the bugs in the first place. Obviously for the greens as well, they will eat a lot to start with until they sort of like get older and they build up their fat stores and they're able to adjust and reduce the amount of food that you're giving them. As much as a lot of people think, oh, they're quite easy to take care of, they do have specialist needs with heat, light, humidity, their diet and things like that, supplements. You have to just be very aware of that. So my advice is just do lots of research. They will also shed their skin every sort of week or two when they're young, and then that kind of goes like every few weeks or every month, every couple of months as they get older. And they do actually tend to go a chalky colour, like they change colour completely. They literally almost look like little ghosts. This is right before one of his recent sheds that he had, and you can see he is literally chalky white. And then literally that same night he actually shed, and he came out looking a lot brighter. As you can see, his colours were back. This was the following morning. He'd shed his skin, and they do kind of shed it pretty much all in one go. They will also eat their shed, so they can't be detected by predators in the wild. So it's an instinctive thing. They'll, even in captivity, eat their shed. So yeah, it's quite a clever technique really, because it kind of hides the evidence of where they've been from predators. So yeah, this is while he's still young, it's sort of going on every couple of weeks or so, but I have noticed the gap is kind of gradually widening. It was once a week actually when we first got him for the first sort of few months, but now like the last couple of sheds have been sort of like 2-3 weeks. So yeah, that is something a bit like with bearded dragons, that is something that does actually like widen the gap as they get a bit older. But Harley, in terms of temperament, is very, very sweet. He's still quite skittish and nervous. We don't handle him a heck of a lot. He was kind of quite nervous when we first got him, and he still seems a little bit nervous, but he is getting there. It's amazing actually, his personality sort of coming out now. He's getting a little bit older, and he is a lot more confident. Like if I open the door, rather than kind of scarpering and running away and going to hide, he tends to be nosy and creep up to the door and wonder what I'm doing and try and investigate. And he's a lot more curious, and actually sometimes he kind of climbs onto my hand almost like he wants to come out. And I do very much choice-based handling with a nervous pet like that, to be honest. Loki's similar as well, the corn snake. And obviously if they don't want to come out, or if they don't want to come near my hand or climb onto my hand, then that's absolutely fine. Sometimes I'll just get a flick of the tongue, or just a little sniff, a little smell, and then that's it. Harley will walk away. And Loki's very much the same. If Loki doesn't want to come out, he won't. He'll just kind of glide away and go and hide somewhere and just watch from afar. So yeah, I just believe that you should never like force an animal if they're visibly sort of distressed or struggling, stressed out from being handled. Then you just leave them be, and they will come out in their own time, and it builds up trust that way a lot quicker than if you force them to come out and you're going and grabbing them all the time and doing it against their will. So for the most part, yeah, Harley is very, very sweet, but obviously the confidence is building, and we'll just do it in his own time. And yeah, when he's ready, then that will happen one day, but I'm not going to rush him. Now moving on to the feeder bug care, I just wanted to discuss that a little bit. And here I'm just preparing some veg ready to change over the feeder bug's food, which I do sort of on average about twice a week. Just whenever it gets like very dried or they start running out of it, I just put fresh in. And typically I'll just put some kale or some spring greens in. I'll put some carrot in for moisture, especially with the mealworms who can't have any dishes of water or anything because of obviously the risk of drowning. So the mealworms and the superworms, the Morio worms, I will just pop some carrot in as extra moisture. You can use potato, you can use apple peelings. I did used to use apple peelings, but I found that they were going brown and mushy very quickly. So I switched to carrot, and sometimes I'll do potato. If I run out of carrot, I'll do some potato peelings just to add a bit of hydration there for them. For the locust, crickets and dubia roaches that I typically keep as well, for obviously both Bilbo and Harley. I usually put some bug grub in there, which is like a mixture, like a dried food mixture of like crushed up different bugs and things like that in there, in sort of like a granule kind of form, like granule powdery kind of form. And you can get it from like online pet shops, you can get it from local pet shops as well, like reptile places, exotic pet shops and things. And also I put a dish of bug gel, or bug balls, like hydration balls, in for them as hydration, so they sort of like slurp on those, because again you have to be careful with pots of water. You can use cotton wool balls and just soak them in water and just obviously squeeze them out, and then they slurp on the excess water, but yeah, they tend to go a little bit manky after a while, and bug balls just generally keep a little bit better. And with the Moria worms and mealworms, I usually keep them in an oat bran substrate. So I normally get some organic oat bran. I buy them online, sort of a couple of bags, and every sort of maybe a month I'll change out the whole lot and just put fresh in. So they've got fresh bedding, and they use that as an extra food source as well. And they'll just obviously like burrow in it, and it just keeps it nice and fresh and stops it going all mouldy and mildewy in there. And with those, as the same with these other bugs, I put egg cartons in there, so they've got places to kind of crawl in and hide in. It kind of creates an extra sort of platform for them to move around on, and it just gives them a chance to sort of separate from each other. So you know, you might have some crawling around on the bottom or on the sides, and then you might have others that kind of go into the egg cartons here, and they'll just like hide away, and that's where they sleep and get away from each other basically. So it's just a case of creating different platforms for them, so that it's kind of like making the most of the space within the containers. And actually caring for the feeder bugs is kind of a job in itself. It's literally like having other pets that you have to look after and feed and clean out and take care of, because if the bugs are nutritious and they're gut loaded properly and they're eating nutritious healthy food, then obviously the pet that you're going to feed them to, like Bilbo for example, or Harley, if your crickets shall we say are nutritiously gut loaded, then obviously you know your pet will be, Bilbo and Harley will be. And that's the general idea of obviously keeping feeder bugs healthy and clean and hydrated, is that, you know, obviously when it comes to feeding them to your bearded dragon or your leopard gecko, or you know, whatever the case may be, that they are nice and healthy, because the food that they're eating is healthy as well. So that's why it's kind of important actually to sort of make it a job in itself to ensure that your feeder bugs are all healthy and eating properly. And as I said earlier, it is very important that you kind of do your research and you know what kind of bugs you're going to be having in your house, because trust me, there will be a lot of bugs around. As I said earlier, you will have a lot of containers with different bugs and things that you have to take care of, and in a sense you can't really afford to be too squeamish either as well when it comes to having to handle locusts or crickets or dubia roaches. I know some people that would kind of freak them out, the idea of handling some type of cockroach or whatever, or having them in the house, but you know, it's part of it. If you want to kind of keep the likes of leopard geckos or bearded dragons or reptiles that will eat bugs, it's just all part and parcel of it. So yeah, again, like I say, I would stress, do your research, and you know, obviously like know what kind of bugs that your pet is going to be having, and be prepared to have to handle them if you're emptying containers into these containers when you're buying them from the pet shop and you get them home and you empty them out into a bigger enclosure, you know, to sort of obviously keep them in. You know, be aware that you're going to get the odd escapee where yeah, that's happened to me a number of times, where a cricket's jumped out and I've had to grab it quick, or you know, corner it, and I've had a couple of escaped ones that have gone underneath the fridge or underneath like the kickboard of a cupboard, and I've had to wait for them to come out, or literally I just don't see them again, or they might suddenly surface a few days later and they're sat in the middle of the room and you have to grab them quick. So yeah, you have to be fully aware that might happen. Now I'd like to introduce you to Loki, our corn snake. And Loki is about a year and a couple of months old. We got him when he was about 5 months old, roughly 4 or 5 months old. and they're fully grown typically around 18 months or 2 years. That's when their growth sort of like slows down or comes to a halt pretty much, and they basically stay the same size. Their lifespan in the wild is about sort of 8 to 10 years, but they can live up to 20 years plus in captivity. I believe the oldest one is like 32 years and 3 months or something like that. So they live a long time, so be prepared for the long haul. And Loki is kept in a 4x2 by 2 foot enclosure with a 7% UVB Arcadia shade dweller kit, which is on a timer for a 12-hour day and night cycle, so 7 in the morning till 7 at night. 75 watt deep heat projector light is also there on a thermostat, so that is again like 12-hour cycle, 7 in the morning, 7 at night time, although the nighttime temperatures do actually drop from kind of an average of 32. We do actually drop them to about 24 or between 21 and 24, just because when the snakes are young it's a good idea to kind of still keep a temperature up, particularly if you're feeding them in the evening, which typically we do with Loki, because they obviously need heat for digesting their food as well. So yeah, he literally is about 21-24 his nighttime temperature. It actually stays quite nice and snuggly in there, and it encourages him to come out and roam around. And I'm just giving you an overview of the enclosure here. He's also got lots of clutter, places to kind of explore and climb over and go round and thread in and out, as he often does. He's often climbing as well. He tries to climb kind of over his the hood of his light, his UVB light, and he tries to climb up these cages that are around the heat lamp and the little moonlight bulb there that you can see. That is not on all night. It literally just comes on after his main light goes out, and it will come on for about 2 hours. That's just literally for us to be able to kind of see him when it starts to get a bit dark, just for a couple of hours, just to sit and look at him when he's in there, and then it will go off by about 9 o'clock, so it's only on for a couple of hours. And then he's in complete darkness. So yeah, obviously it is more ideal to kind of have them in complete darkness. They need that kind of day-night cycle, the circadian rhythm that they will get used to very quickly. But yeah, you can see lots of like logs. There's loads of hides in there, all different places. There's that skull there, that skull hide that he often goes in and out of. He's got like a snake cave. He's got a humid hide, or a couple of humid hides actually, like in the middle and in the warm end of the enclosure. That black box there, he spends a lot of time in that, and that is actually a humid hide, but even when it's dried out, he will spend time in there. That snake cave that you can see on the top there, that is another humid hide. So he's got loads of other like logs and hides and things in the back that you can't actually see. I tried to get as much as I could here. He's got a couple of hammocks. He's got lots of coverage, like with artificial plants and vines and things that he does climb. He will thread his way through the hammocks because they're the seagrass ones with the holes in, and yeah, he's often rubbing against those, and they do use that kind of texture just obviously for shedding and stuff, which they do every 4 to 6 weeks when they're young, and about every 3 months when they're older.
I'm just afraid of being alone. Well, I don't care, 'cause right now I feel the love that we said we would burn. Oh, I know that you feel it too.
So here I've just given a trigger warning because you're about to see a snake being fed, and he eats 2 pinkies every 7 days. Very soon we're going to be trying to upgrade him to fuzzies, because we think that it's probably time that he upgrades to a slightly bigger food, which will be kind of every 7 days, 1 fuzzy every 7 days. But at the moment he's eating 2 pinkies every 7 days, and we were feeding him at one point 1 pinky every 7 days. But yeah, he was obviously still out and about looking for food, so we figured that he was still hungry, so we're now changed to 2 pinkies every 7 days. So you're about to see him grab it. There he goes, he's just grabbed it. I did this bit in slow motion as well, just to show you how he grabs his food. You just kind of give it a wiggle, and it's frozen thawed as well, because it's kind of more humane really, rather than using live rodents. It causes less stress for the rodent, obviously being in a small space and not being able to get away from a snake that's pursuing them, and it's just easier for the snake as well. I know it's a bit controversial. Some people will still claim to actually feed their snakes live food, but You know, if you can get them frozen thawed, I don't think it's necessary. It just causes undue stress for the mouse or the rat. And yeah, you just obviously want to keep it as humane as possible. I mean, obviously you're still feeding them a dead animal, but you know, it is a dead animal. It's not like a live one that's going to get stressed and panicked because it can't get away from a snake that's chasing it. So you know, it's a controversial thing, but I think for the most part, you know, most people will feed frozen thawed. Corn snakes are constrictor snakes, so when they grab their prey, they'll grab it typically and either swallow it down straight away, like you can see Loki doing here, or they'll wrap around it to kind of subdue it and crush it before they obviously swallow it down whole. So obviously there's no chewing or anything like that involved. They'll literally stretch themselves to kind of fit it down. You can see this huge bulge as he's kind of swallowed it, and then he kind of like does a little wriggle and he sort of moves it along his body and moves it down, and then it will sit in his stomach, and obviously he'll digest that for a couple of days or so before it usually kind of like passes out the other end after about 2 or 3 days. But yeah, usually after he's eaten, it's best to kind of give them at the very least 48 hours before you handle them again, and obviously depending on how big the food is as well and how much you've given them. So because we feed him 2 pinkies every 7 days, and I usually give him about 4 days, like 2 days for each pinky, just before I even attempt to handle him again afterwards.
This right here is a beautiful little corn snake, Pantherophis guttatus. This is the red rat snake. This is part of the rat snake family. So the black rat snakes that you may find up north and also down south, that is what these beautiful snakes are related to. Now they get the name corn snake, as you can see by those textbook blotches on the back that kind of look like pieces of corn. These guys are also found in cornfields, in those fields looking for a variety of things, such as mice and birds and things like that. Super cool. These guys are pretty docile snakes. This snake bit me once after I picked it up. That's just because this snake was in defense mode. Super cool. You see it has that S and it's flicking its tongue. That's just it sensing its area, looking for what's going on. It sees me as a predator, but right now becoming much more docile. Super cool. So these snakes are found in residential areas all the time. That's because they are preying on those mice and frogs and little things that can be found around there. They're super cool snakes. They can also be found in the wetland areas, in cypress forests, places like that, down here in Florida. He's getting a little bit antsy right now. Let him go back down. Super stunning snake. This is not a fully grown corn snake. They can get much larger than this. Super cool. You can see on his tail, he has a little bit of a wound right there. It's a little bit nubbed, but just an absolutely stunning snake right there. Beautiful. This is such an awesome find. I haven't seen a corn snake in about, I want to say 5 years since the last time I was in Florida, and 2018 was the last time I found one. Just an absolutely amazing snake species. Now, another thing I want to show you is that beautiful checkered patterning on the belly. That is characteristic of a lot of rat snakes here in the United States. The other thing too is these guys have smooth scales, which means that their scales are super smooth and not keeled, unlike garter snakes and water snakes that we can also have here in the United States. I'm also feeling it right now. These rat snakes are constrictors, so they're going to use their muscles to kill their prey once they grab on. I'm feeling that right on my thumb right there. Now these guys also don't have too many predators once they get larger. They can be eaten by other snakes though, birds, foxes, things like that. Now the other thing too is these guys are commonly mistaken for copperheads, which I'll put an image up on the screen. These guys are obviously not copperheads. Copperheads will have that more Hershey kiss coloration on the sides, while these guys have these blotches. They are orange, but they're really not that similar to copperheads. So if you do see a corn snake in the wild, make sure to never kill these snakes. These snakes are absolutely amazing and super helpful for the environment as they're eating all those rodents. I mean, these guys are basically just free rodent control. So if you find one around your house, that is a very good sign. These snakes are super docile. However, if you are not too keen on snakes, I wouldn't recommend going and picking up a snake, especially if you do not know the specific identity and species right there. But just an absolutely amazing, beautiful snake right here. The corn snake, Pantherophis guttatus.
In terms of shedding, they will shed all in one piece, so they kind of like, when it's time, they rub up against something and they break open the skin, and then they kind of, you know, go along something rough and they peel it off and it comes off inside out and it's all in one piece. And you can see here, this was the last shed that he had had about 3-4 weeks before before I filmed this video, this part, and you can see like even the little eye caps, you can see like all the details of the scales and things where obviously his skin would have been stuck to him, and literally right from the head to the tip of the tail. It all should, with a healthy shed, it should come off all in one go. If it comes off in bits and pieces, then it could be that your humidity is too low, and you need to up it for the next time round, or there's a skin issue or something like that. So obviously you have to keep an eye on it and make sure that everything is shed off, because if the tip of the tail is kept on there and it's not taken off properly, you have to kind of sometimes help them do it. Otherwise there's a risk of it getting so tight on there with each shed and each layer of skin that it will cut off the blood supply of the tail.
I have learned that no one else can carry this load. It's a train where I'm the only passenger on board.
In terms of Loki's temperament, he is a very sweet snake. His confidence has definitely come out a lot since we've had him. He was quite nervous and shy, and he would spend a lot of time hiding away. I know corn snakes are very much like that anyway, but yeah, he was typically very, very nervous and wouldn't come out. We'd literally have to go in and sort of, kind of take out everything in order to pick him up. But yeah, he's definitely grown in confidence, and he'll even sort of come up to the door, and even when we open it, he won't kind of shoot off into a hide or to the back of his enclosure anymore. He'll actually kind of hang around now, so we've definitely noticed the difference. And I'm sure as he gets a bit older and a bit bigger and feels less threatened and less vulnerable, I think that confidence will only keep growing. So yeah, overall Loki, he's a sweet little snake. He's never been struck by him, never been attacked by him. He's never hissed at us or rattled his tail or anything, which they typically do if they're defensive. When we first got him, he did kind of, when we tried to pick him up a couple of times, he sort of went into a slight S position with his head, but once he was actually scooped up very gently, he quickly relaxed and he just kind of roams around, wraps himself around your hands and your arms and just explores and flicks his tongue lazily, and he's just generally a very, very sweet little character. And I just look forward to having him for many years to come and see his personality really come out.
Traveling spirit, I've seen many shores, from the West Pacific to the island of Kenya. They treat me like a son anywhere I go. And even though no one can tell, I still feel that
So that is it for this pet update and pet care video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and it gave you some idea of what's involved in caring for these pets, and obviously gave you an insight into the pets that I keep. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with all of our other videos, which I post every Monday. And from me and Bilbo, thanks for watching guys, and see you again soon. Bye for now.
I have learned that no one else can carry this load. It's a train where I'm the